everyone, welcome back to my channel for my most anticipated book releases of the second half of 2021. Well, not quite half, about 5 months now, because July is obviously coming to an end. But I do want to talk about the books that I'm super excited about that are coming out between August and December of this year, because there are tons. And even though I did videos like this at the beginning of the year talking about my most anticipated releases of 2021 in general, a ton of these I didn't know about then. Some of them didn't have release dates back then, so I wanted to make sure that I covered my basis and gave you a little bit of an insight into what I'll be picking up in the second half of this year. It is in part also inspired by the fact that my own fantasy novel is coming on September 2nd, The Flames of Albion. I am so nervous and excited. I both cannot wait for it to exist and be out there in the world to share that story, to have released that passion project out there, but also, I mean, as you can anticipate, very, very nervous because it is unlike anything I've obviously published in the past, so it's quite a big undertaking. But I'll have that linked in the description box down below, as well as my video announcing that novel with more details, because that's not what this video is all about. I am excited about that release, but I've talked about it already, so I want to talk about other people's books. So with that being said, let's just crack on with all of the books I am looking forward to coming out the rest of this year, and I will be telling you the release dates for the UK based on Amazon, so of course these are subject to change. First up is The Sister Who Ate Her Brothers, written by Jen Campbell and illustrated by Adam D'Souza. So this is a illustrated children's book, but definitely for the older children, because it's very, very creepy. It is a beautifully illustrated collection of creepy fairy tales from across the world, written in Jen's lyrical prose. You all know at this point that Jen is one of my best friends in the entire world, but because of that I've also had the honour of reading some of the stories that are included in this collection already, and I stand by the fact that they are amazing. Like, I've always been a fan of Jen's writing, even before we were friends, and that remains true to this day. I would be so excited about this book even if it wasn't written by a friend of mine, but it's always nice to support the people that you love. It is beautiful. Like, Adam D'Souza's illustrations bring these stories to life. They really just match so well with the prose, and I'm super excited to have a physical copy that I can pore over, because I adore those kind of collections of fairy tales, whether they're written for children or adults. I think they're the kind of thing that can be enjoyed from a certain age upward and can be shared with families. My mum used to read me this collection of creepy fairy tales from around the world that was edited by Michael Rosen as a child, and I adored it. I have so many fond memories of sitting curled up in a blanket in the garden with my mum and some of my friends reading these stories to each other, and it was so much fun. So I feel like that's what this book is going to be, and I cannot wait for it to come out. This one is coming out on the 7th of October, so in perfect time for the spooky season and Halloween. We then have another book by an author I adore, and that is The Women of Troy by Pat Barker. So this is the long-awaited sequel to The Silence of the Girls, or follow-on book from The Silence of the Girls, which is a retelling of the Greek myth of the Trojan War from the perspective of the women who are enslaved during that war by the Greeks. So we follow, in particular, one Trojan woman named Briseis, who was a princess that was enslaved by Achilles and is a part of the original story, but we never hear from her in the original version. So Pat Barker just did an incredible job with that book of really exploring the realities of enslavement during wartime and the effects of war on women that apply so much further than antiquity. It felt like a piece of scholarship and history as well as a fictional novel, because it was so in-depth and so emotional and so real, and I love that book. So of course I am so excited to follow on that journey and read more about the women's experiences during the Trojan War and different women's experiences. So I can't wait for this one to come out. I actually interviewed Pat Barker on my podcast for the first novel, so if you're interested in hearing more about The Silence of the Girls, I'll have that link down below. This one comes out on the 26th of August, but it also leads me in very nicely to my next recommendation, because one, it's a Greek myth retelling, and two, there's a podcast episode coming for it, and that is Medusa by Jessie Burton. This is another one aimed at a younger audience, a YA audience, but it's also one that adults can read. I have already read this book. I read an early copy because I had the honour and privilege of interviewing Jessie Burton for my podcast, and that episode is going to be going live in concurrent with the book coming out in October, specifically the 28th of October. So if you would like to hear me interview the author of this one upon release of the book, then look out for that, because a new season of my podcast is starting very, very, very soon, and there's going to be a ton of exciting episodes. But back onto the book. So this book is beautiful and emotional and such an interesting take on the myth. It explores the trauma experienced by Medusa as a young woman who is raped, and then the stigma that comes with her having been sexually assaulted and the changes that brings upon her visually because of Athena's punishment. And it's so emotional and heart-wrenching. But more than that, there's a sense of hope throughout this novel, and it very much hones in on the fact that Medusa was a girl, that this is a teenage girl that went through this, and therefore explores it from that perspective and writes it and present it in a way that is incredibly relatable and insightful for teenagers, but can be read by adults and adored. This is another one that's illustrated. It's illustrated by Olivia Lomanek-Gill, and the illustrations are stunning. They are works of art. They are paintings that have been rendered for this book and incorporated into the text. I would love to have some as prints on my wall, so if those ever become available, you know I will be buying them. But all in all, again, even though I've read it, I'm really looking forward to having a physical illustrated copy to pour over. We then have a book that's release date is very close to my own book's release date, so it's going to be a fun week that week, and that is Lord of Eternal Night by Ben Alderson. So this is, well, it's so many things and I'm so excited for it, a queer male fantasy romance retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but with vampires. So the Beast character is a vampire, and I believe that the Beauty character is someone tasked with killing the vampire, but instead they fall in love and have a lot of fun, raunchy times, which I am so excited about. I am so excited for this book. It sounds absolutely fantastic. And I am an absolute sucker for the fantasy romance genre, so if you are like me, then you have to check this one out. It's coming out on the 4th of September, like I mentioned, super close to my book, and I have no doubt that I'm probably going to consume this entire book in one evening, and I cannot wait to read it. Another September release, but the 21st of September for this one, is Torn by Jasmine Watson. So this is a book inspired by the Grimm fairy tales. It is the first in the Verse of Grimm series. It's meant to be very fairy tale-esque in storyline and writing, and I absolutely love that. I love anything that claims to be a fairy tale retelling or a new fairy tale, and to just have all those fairy tale vibes. It's set in a fantasy world divided into two. There is the in-between and the above, and the in-between is suffering through a lot of unrest and people are in danger. The only person who can save them, however, is a young woman from the above, and I don't know much more than that, but I'm super excited. I also have an early review copy coming, so hopefully going to be reading that one before it comes out and I can share my thoughts in more detail. Something that's coming out a little bit sooner though, on the 5th of August, and you know I'm going to be reading this book the day it comes out, is the third and final book in Holly Jackson's YA thriller series, As Good as Dead. So this is the third book in the series that follows on from A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is about a teenager named Pip who decides to attempt to solve a cold case related to her small town for a school project. But then there has since been a sequel, which is about Pip the summer after her final year at school, and then of course we're having this third and final book, which is about Pip during her first year at university. I loved book 1 in this series. I maybe loved book 2 even more, so I have such high expectations for book 3. Holly Jackson weaves such compelling mysteries, and they are full of so many interesting twists and turns and red herrings that just make for a really fun page turner of a read. Whilst we're on the topic of YA thrillers though, the next book on my list is How We Fall Apart by Katie Zoe. This one is set at an elite private prep school, so it might have some dark academia vibes, I don't know, but I always love a book set in that sort of claustrophobic environment of a boarding school. And this one is about a group of friends who have to confront some secrets that they are all in on when their ex-best friend turns up dead. I kind of love that it's someone they used to be friends with and now something's happened, and maybe something happened in the past. Maybe this is going to be a little bit of I Know What You Did Last Summer, I don't know. It's also been compared to Crazy Rich Asians, so I'm assuming it's going to have a little bit of that sense of humour. This one again is coming out really soon on the 3rd of August, and since you can tell I already love YA thrillers, I'm going to just go with the last one on this list, which is also a YA thriller, and that is You'll Be the Death of Me by Karen M. McManus. So I have read pretty much every book Karen M. McManus has written. I love her writing and I love her mysteries. They're just absolutely fantastic. I find that I read them incredibly quickly and they are just such fun. So of course I'm super excited for her latest offering, which comes out on the 2nd of December, so a little bit longer to wait, but you know, I'm going to be there the day it comes out. And it's a bit of a dark take on the Ferris Bueller's Day Off type storyline where three friends decide to ditch school and something dark and dangerous ends up happening. But if you prefer your thrillers to be adult as opposed to young adult, I do have one of those, and that is Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine M. Valente, which comes out on the 26th of October, another perfect Halloween timed read. And this is about Sophia, whose relationship is perfect. She has the perfect husband, they're madly in love, and she's so happy. Or is she? Because her husband keeps going on these long business trips and returns with a dark look on his face that she can't quite seem to place. Then when she starts to do a little bit more digging, the neighbours seem to be hiding something from her as if they know more than she does, and we all get dragged down into this dark and creepy mystery with her. Cannot wait to read it. Catherine M. Valente is a beautiful writer, so I'm excited to see what she does with the thriller genre. And last but not least, we have a sci-fi novel which is called Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aiko, and this one comes out on the 28th of September. So I confess that I was initially drawn to this novel simply from the opening line on Amazon, which reads, "Good Omens meets The Long Way to Small Angry Planet" in Rika Aiko's Light from Uncommon Stars, a defiantly joyful adventure set in California's San Gabriel Valley with cursed violins, Faustian bargains, and queer alien courtship over fresh-made donuts. You know I am here for this. It sounds majorly hope punk, which is a subgenre of the science fiction and fantasy categories that is all about hope and joy. It's meant to just have much more positive vibes than a lot of the grim dark stuff you find in that genre, which I love. I adore The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, so if this is going to be anything like it, I cannot wait, and the fact that it has queer representation is just another bonus. I honestly don't know much else about it, but if you could write a few sentences that would sell me on a book, those would be them, and I cannot wait to read this. So that is my list of books I'm super excited for coming out in the second half of this year, in the next 5 months or so. I hope you have enjoyed learning about them and maybe some of them sound good to you as well. If there's anything you're really excited about, I'd love to hear about it, because I mean, can my list ever be too long? No, it cannot. Let me know in the comments down below. But until next time, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye everyone.